my channel. I am Maricita Colors in English.
Hello my dear friends, today we will make in knitting this beautiful sweater with the V-neck. For the waistband I use the rib stitch, and after this I use only the knit and purl stitch. For the neck I made the creases, and for begin the back I make increases. The front and the back of my sweater is only one piece. At the end only we must sew the laterals. The size of my sweater is a large, but you can do it for all the size. Only you need the wide and the long until the shoulders of the persons that you want make this sweater. Before I begin my pattern, I want to invite you to subscribe here in my channel Maricita Colors in English. It's total free. Remember, activate the bell for that you can receive all the posts when I have a new pattern here in my channel. Now we will learn to make this beautiful sweater with the V-neck in knitting. For make this sweater, I use this ribbon from Lana Grossa. The model is Primavera. I use 300 grams. In every yarn come 100 grams. They say that we can use the needles between 6,50 millimeters, but I use the 7 millimeters for the waistband and the 10 millimeters for the body. This is the yarn, like ribbon, is 100% cotton. For the neck, I will use the needle in circle. In my sweater I have 64 stitches. I made 4 rows of the rib stitch, and after this I change for the knit and purl stitch. Remember that every yarn and every needle make of different size over thread. For this you always must make a little pattern and calculate how many centimeters or inches make your pattern. You can compare the width of a top, of a pullover, of the person that you want make the sweater. I will calculate for 20 stitches. I will involve 20 times the yarn on my needle. I have 20 times. I let free the yarn, and from here I will make the stitches over the needle. How we will make the stitches? I help me with the fingers. I insert with the needle and from left to right on the needle. We pull a little, not so tight. The needle into the front and from the left to the right on the needle. Like this I will make 20 stitches. "19 and 20 stitches. We turn the knitting work, and now I will make the rib stitch. Here I use the needle number 7 millimeters for that my waistband is a little tight. So now I will make the knit stitch, the first. From left to right, we bring the yarn into these needles, into the needles, and the needle take the yarn. Now I will make the purl stitch. We bring the yarn into the front, and from the right to the left we insert into the stitch, we involve the needle and we back the needle and take this yarn. We must alternate the knit and purl stitch. Now yarn into the back for make the knit stitch. From left to right we insert into the stitch, we pass the yarn and back the needle for take the yarn. Again the yarn into the front for make the purl stitch. Like this I must repeat until finish the row. I make 4 rows of the rib stitch in my sweater. Almost I finish the first row of the rib stitch. Here I make the knit stitch, and the last is the purl stitch because we have even number in our thread. For that my border is uniform, try to pull a little the yarn. We turn the knitting work, and here we must make the same stitches. Here I begin again with the knit stitch. From the second row, I pass the first stitch to the needle of the right. Only we pass. This is for that my border is uniform. I pass the yarn into the front for make the purl stitch. You can see it's like canots. And we make the purl stitch and the knit stitch. We must alternate the purl and knit stitch until that we finish the row. Almost I finish the second row. Always I finish with the purl stitch and I pull for that my border is uniform. We turn the knitting work, and here you can notice the rib stitch. When the yarn of the begin is in the right side, this is the front of the work for me. Here in my pattern I will change the needles and the stitch. Now in this row I will make only the knit stitch, and into the reverse I will make the purl stitch. Here I will change to the needle for that my body of my sweater is a little loose. So the first stitch we pass, and we begin to make only the knit stitch in all the row. Almost I finish the first row of the knit stitch. It's one knit stitch in every stitch. And here I let the 7 millimeters, the needle, and I change for the 10 millimeters like this. Remember that we change the stitches into the front of our thread. Here we will make the purl stitch. The first we pass like purl stitch, and we begin to make the purl stitch. It's from the right to the left, and we make only the purl stitch until that we finish the row. Almost I finish the row of the purl stitch. We pull a little and we turn the knitting work. You can see the difference between the rib and the knit stitch. Here in my sweater I made 44 rows of the knit stitch, and after this I begin with the decreases for make the V neck. So here we repeat the first stitch we pass, and from here we make only the knit stitch. Now we are into the front of our work. I will make some rows and I will back for show you how I make the V neck. Here I have some rows of the knit and purl stitch. This is the purl stitch. I pull a little. For count the rows, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 rows. We turn the knitting work. I will show you how I begin to make the V-neck in my sweater. In my thread, I made 44 rows of the knit and purl stitch plus the 4 rows of the rib stitch. We must divide our sweater in 2 parts. So here I have 20, so it's 10 in the right and 10 in the left side. In my sweater, I have 64 stitches and was 32 stitches in the right and 32 stitches in the left. Here I will make 10 stitches because from this row I will start to make the V-neck. 8, 9, and 10 stitches. From here I will use another yarn for make the left side. So here I will begin to make one decrease 2. But first we pass the yarn, we join with the stitch, we pass the yarn into the stitch, and here I will make 2 knots for make secure our thread. In this row I will begin to make the decrease. I will take 2 stitches in one and I will make like a knit stitch. So this is the first decrease. It's 1 decrease for every row. Now I will continue making all the knit stitches. Almost I finished the row of the knit stitch. Here you can see the division of our sweater. We turn the knitting work and here in this side I must make 1 decrease. So now only we will make the purl stitch of this side. So here I will pass the first stitch like a knit. Look, the yarn is in the back. We pass and we bring the yarn into the front. And from here I will cut 2 stitches and I will make the purl stitch. So here we made 1 decrease. And we continue only with the purl stitch until we finish the row. We turn the knitting work and here you can see the division of our sweater. Like this I made 12 decreases. The first stitch we pass and we only make the knit stitches. I will make another decrease. The first stitch with another yarn, remember? We pass the first and we will take 2 stitches. And we made 1 decrease with the knit stitch. And we continue making the knit stitch in all the stitches. We turn the knitting work and we make again all the purl stitches that we find. Here I find another side and here I must make 1 decrease. I pass the first stitch like a knit stitch. I bring the yarn into the front, and here I catch 2 stitches and I make the purl stitch. This is another decrease. Disminución en español. And now only we make every purl stitch. Return the knitting work. In every side I must have the same number of stitches. In my sweater I have 32 stitches and I make the creases until have 20 stitches. From the 20 I must have again the 32 in every side. Here in my shoulder I have 17 centimeters when I have the 20 stitches. Here I let you a graphic for that you can see how I made my sweater. In this row I have 8 stitches in every side. So I must begin with the increases, but always in the beginning of the row in the neck. Here I will make only the 8 knit stitches, because in this row I must begin with the increase in the another side, in the left side. Here I have 8 stitches and I must make 1 increase for half 9. I pass the first stitch and I will make the increase in the second stitch. Here I will make 1 knit stitch and I don't let the stitch of the left, and with the needle I insert the needle again into the same stitch and I make another knit stitch, and ready, we make the first increase. This row, from here we begin the back of our sweater. Now only we continue with the knit stitches and we must make the increase in the another side. Here I make only the purl stitches. Here I have 9 stitches now. Here I must make another increase too. The first I pass like knit. I bring the yarn into the front. In the second stitch I will make a purl stitch, but I don't let out the stitch of the left. And with the needle I cut the same stitch from the back and I make another purl stitch. And now we made 1 increase. And I continue with the purl stitches that we find. Return the knitting work, and here I only make the 9 knit stitches. Here I must make another increase with another yarn. Remember, we pass the first, and in the second I make the knit stitch and I don't let out the stitch of the left, and with the needle I insert into the same stitch and I make another knit stitch. So we have 2 stitches in 1. And here I continue making the knit stitches. Now I have here the 10 knit stitches like in the beginning. We turn the knitting work and only we will make the purl stitch that we find. And here I must make the last increase. The first stitch I pass like knit, we bring the yarn, and into the second stitch I make a purl stitch and I don't let out the stitch of the left, and with the needle I cut from the back the stitch. and again we make the purl stitch. So now we have two purl stitches in one stitch. This is one increase, aumentos en español. And only we make the purl stitches that we find. We turn the knitting work, and now I have in both sides 10 stitches. Altogether is 20, like in the beginning of my sweater. Now I will join again all the stitches for make the back of my sweater. The first stitch we pass, and we begin to make the knit stitches. And now I find the 10 stitches, and we will join. We continue with the same yarn. You can cut another yarn of the left side, and you can make a canot now. Here you can cut and make the canot, for that is more secure our thread. This is the yarn that you must cut because we don't use anymore. And I continue with the knit stitches that we find. So now we have again the 20 stitches of my pattern. We turn the knitting work, and here we continue with the purl stitches. You only must make the same rows that we make into the front before to begin the creases. In my sweater I have 44 rows. Here again we continue only making the purl stitches. Now here I have 2 rows from the 10 that I make in the beginning. Here I must make 8 stitches or 8 rows more for be the same. Here I will show you in my sweater how I finish to make the stitches. Here I have the 4 rows of the rib stitches. After this I make 44 rows of the knit and purl stitches, and here I begin to make the division of my sweater. This is the V-neck. Here I made the decreases until I have 20 stitches in the shoulder. Here I have 64 stitches, so the half is 32. So I begin to make the decreases until have the 20 stitches in the shoulder. Until here is the front of my sweater. And I begin with the increases, and this is the back of my thread. I join the 2 sides, and now I made the 44 row with the purl stitch. Here I use the needle number 10 millimeters. So now I will finish this row of purl stitches. I pull a little for that my border is uniform. We turn the knitting work, and I will use the needle number 7 for make the rib stitch. The first stitch we pass, and we bring the yarn, and I make the purl stitch. Yarn into the back, and I will make the knit stitch. So like this I will make the first row of the rib stitch. We must alternate one knit and one purl stitch. I finish the first row of the rib stitch. I must change another needle, and here I only make the first stitch like the knit stitch, and we bring the yarn and we make the purl stitch. And here only we must make one knit and one purl stitch. I must make 4 rows, and after this I will close my sweater. I will come back when I have the 4 rows. Almost I finished the 4 row of the rib stitch. This is the reverse of my thread. I pull a little and turn the knitting work. And this is the front. Look, it's very nice. This rib stitch is a little tight for the waist. Now for the front, we will close the stitches. Look, this is my sweater. It's all in one piece. We made decreases, and after this increases, for that gives the form of the V-neck. Now I have 64 stitches like in the beginning. Both sides can be the front or the back of the sweater. Now we will close. The first stitch we pass, and here I only will use the knit stitch. We make the knit stitch, and the first pass over the second, and the second stay in the needle. Again, one knit stitch, and the first over the second. One knit stitch and the first over the second. I will close the 64 stitches. You don't must make so tight, only a little loose. Here almost I finished to close my sweater. And I will let some centimeters for join the laterals of my sweater. We cut the yarn and we pass the yarn into the last stitch. And we push a little the last stitch for that our work is uniform and ready. Now I turn in 2 parts my sweater and I will sew the lateral. This is the front with front, look. This is the rib stitch, so I will insert the needle into the edge of the sweater. And I back for that is secure my thread. I must join in the horizontal stitches front in front. And here I find another horizontal stitch. So front in front, I must try to open the stitches and find these horizontal stitches. I will let 21 centimeters for my armhole. You can make a little tight and a little loose too. And here we finish the rib stitch and only we find these knit stitches. So we open the stitches and we find these horizontal stitches. And we start to sew front in front. We can make a loop and pass the needle into this loop for make more secure our sew. Like this, I will close until let 21 centimeters for the armhole. Here almost I finished to sew my lateral. You must sew the same in the another side. I join front in front with the horizontal stitches. And here I show you that I have 21 centimeters of long. Into the another lateral you must let the same stitches or the same centimeters or inches. I will pass now, when it's finished or ready, I will pass the needle into the back or into the reverse. And here I only will finish to sew my jar. From the division of my neck until the shoulders, I have approximately 25 centimeters of long. I will show you how I begin to make the neck in my sweater. I will use the rib stitch again. This is one of the yarns that I didn't cut, but you can pass a new yarn too. For this, I will use the circle needles. I will begin here in the division of my front and until the division of the back. I will make two parts for my neck. And then we must sew a little here the neck. Now I will make the stitches. I pass the needle in one of the stitches here in the division. I pass the yarn and I have one stitch, the first. In every stitch you must try to make one stitch. If not, your neck will be a little tight. Try to make one stitch in every stitch. So I will repeat until the another side. I find the division and I will count how many stitches I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 50 and 52 stitches. So in the another side, I must have 52 stitches too. We turn the knitting work and I will begin with the rib stitch. The first stitch is the knit stitch. I put in the right position the stitch and here I will begin with the knit stitch. Yarn into the front and I will make the purl stitch. Again the knit stitch. So I will alternate knit and purl stitch until we finish the row. Here I made some rows of the rib stitch. Always I have the 52 stitches in every row. Here I finish the row. I pull a little the yarn. We turn the knitting work. I am into the front of my sweater and I will close my thread. First I will show you how many rows I have: 2, 4, 6, 8 and 9. So in the row number 10 I will close. Here I have 4 centimeters approximately. Now we will close our thread. The first stitch we pass and we make only knit stitch in this row. And the first over the second and the second stay in the needle. Again, one knit stitch, the first stitch over the second and the second stay on the needle. I must repeat until close the 52 stitches. Almost I finished to close all the stitches in my neck, and here I will cut the yarn and the yarn that we cut we must pass into the last stitch. We pass the yarn and we push a little for that my work is uniform and ready. If you see that your neck is a little tight, you must make again and have more stitches that you have. So now in the another side we must repeat the same. We must have the same number of stitches. I will begin here into the front and I will pass the yarn in this stitch, and from here I will make the stitches, but first I will make one knot, and from here stitch by stitch I must have 52 stitches. Look here, almost I finish the row. Here I have 50 stitches, so I must have 2 stitches more for complete the 52. And here in the beginning of the neck I can make the stitch number 52. We turn the knitting work, and from here I will begin to make the rib stitch again. The first stitch I make the knit stitch, yarn into the front, and I make the purl stitch, and I alternate the purl and knit stitches. I must have the same rows like my another neck. I come back when I have ready this neck. Here I have ready both necks. Both have the same number of stitches and the same numbers of rows. I will sew my necks one over the another. Here in the back, I will finish to sew my yarn for that is more secure. And ready. Here you can sew too, but it's optional. In the other side, you must sew the same. And we have ready my new knitting sweater. It's very easy and quick to make. I use only 300 grams of yarn of cotton. Remember that you can make this sweater with all the materials that you have in home. I want to invite you to subscribe here in my channel, Maricita Colors in English. It's total free. Remember, activate the bell for that you receive all the posts when I have a new pattern here in my channel. You can find me too in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. And if you like this video, you can give one like and share it with your family and friends. We see us until my next crochet or knitting pattern. Ciao, ciao!